I'm dreaming about a world that is guided by collaboration. Because I believe that when we collaborate, we become more than just the sum of us, and we also find solutions instead of individual point of views.
Something I'm dreaming about is like using quantum mechanics to have better healthcare. So imagine you could wake up every morning and have your genome mapped. I think there should be no reason we can't do that. And then you would have sort of a personalized healthcare. And if you've seen the movie Elysium, you'd probably have access to these med beds and molecular reassembly. And then sickness could be cured in a way that's like beyond early detection. Imagine time was able to phase transition, almost like the properties of water. So you know that water can phase transition to, it can go from a solid like, ice, and then it can, go to a liquid, and then it can sublimate. And I always thought that if we could figure out a way to get time to do the same thing, then you could move through it a little differently,
Right now, I'm working on a wayfinding system for a big client for a museum in New York, and also for a new logo for a little foundation to save the oceans that is, created by the granddaughter of Jacques Cousteau.
I'm working on some thesis work at the moment about sort of taking certain mathematical objects and sort of changing, kind of alchemizing them into something else. So working from analysis into category theory. There's a relatively new neuropsychological spectrum out that's sort of called that's called the Fantasia spectrum. Fantasia has two spectrum. One is like aphantasic, which means it's characterized by literal or no mental imagery. So if you ask me to picture the most beautiful thing, that I've ever experienced or something, there may not be any visual associated with that. On the other scale is the hyperphantasics. I align with that have almost like a mental imagery that's like phantom toll booth. It's like very, it's so vivid that it sort of mimics reality. And so that those extraordinary extremes, I'm trying to like mathematize them and try to figure out how that works.
Yeah, that's really interesting because as a graphic designer, communication designer, we work a lot with mental imagery, right? And things that we imagine that you can connect with each other, people, and create sort of an overlap of visual communications. I find it really exciting to see how you talk about that. What puzzles me is that we live with a lot of understanding through science, mathematicians, physics, etc., that scientists work with and understand deeply, but on an everyday level, we don't live by them. It almost, to me, and I wonder if that's true, and I'll be curious to hear what you say, Shanna, it's almost as if science has already proven, we live in a world where we now know that the world is round and there's gravity, but we still live as if the world is flat. So when I think about what we know now, sort of like in terms of quantum physics, etc., there is not so much awareness, but science lives by it, right, and works with it, technology too. And I wonder what a world would look like when we would have an awareness of quantum physics in our everyday life. What would that be like? That puzzles me. Can you describe it to me?
That's a nice puzzling. Yeah, I feel like, yeah, right. You're still operating as if there is a classical world, right? And then, which there is. We're sitting in this chair. I can run into this chair. I can run into everything here. But the thing is that underneath the classicalness, there's this quantum blanket. If you really lived knowing that the world was quantum, I think everything would be different.
I think that I totally understand that because, there's this understanding that, we have to break things down into small bites, basically, for our head to be able to wrap itself around it, and to be able to focus on it so it's not so overwhelming. So I think in that way, that totally makes sense. I'm really intrigued about what my quantum birthday looks like now.
See?
Yes.
And it's like, okay, I had a quantum birthday. Now I get to make new concepts like based on that.
Would my quantum birthday then be like where I try to push my imagination of reality as far as I can? Is that it? Or
But yeah, that might be like, it might be a birthday party for all the many worlds Pamelas.
many worlds?
Many
right?
worlds, yeah. So it's not only this possibility. So if you really believe quantum mechanics, there is only the wave function, which is a wave function of information and probabilities and things like that. And the classical world comes after. So if you really believed, right, and then in the wave function, this would be the birthday party for this Pamela and all the other Pamelas that are not in this current version of time. So I think that's the best party ever. You know, Alice has this like unbirthday, right? You have 364 unbirthdays. Well, you probably have a lot more like Pamela mini world. And that would be a birthday party that is sort of like eternal or something.
Yeah. Ideation is very methodical for me. So a lot of course, everything is research first. Have to be, right? Informing, enriching myself, diving into any subject matter deeply, becoming an expert as much as I can. And then sort of work through the process, from there to synthesizing the research to then creating, ideations that go from mild to wild.
I'm sorry, can you talk about that? Yeah.
because I always come in with ideas like, I don't know yet what is the solution. I always try to come in as much as possible, no matter how much experience, how years, how often you've worked with the client already, to come in with like, I don't know. And so this idea of the beginner's mind, and then go in from the ideation from mild to wild, where something in between.
Wow. So you're having this communication with the work itself. You go in not knowing, you're like, I don't know it yet, but I will. How do you know when the work has told you that's it? Or how do you know when the work is like a little that way? Not quite there. Keep digging.
Either it's not visually successful enough, it is not balanced, there's no harmony, there's no tension, there's no hierarchy, right? So just sort of aesthetically, or it's not there's not enough sincerity in it.
Yeah, so I think for me, we might be a little different there, but I know for me, I'll start as wide enough net as I can, so I think I start at like the event horizon of things. I'm like, how far out do I have to go? And then I pull it back, right? Let me pull it back into something that is like attainable. So I think I'll push it out and kind of enter kind of, I don't know, like a sage state and be like, all right, like what could possibly gravitate from that? And then also powerful mathematician, Alexander Grothendieck, literally like revolutionized one of these fields of algebraic geometries and put in all this stuff about category theory, which I love. Supergiant, very harsh upbringing, was not like the normal caste system coming into this. That's why I really appreciate him. I relate with that. And he got sort of fed up with the competitiveness, and because there's a lot of competition in mathematics, right? And I don't think there needs to be, right? This sort of harsh exclusion will lead to scholarship, right? The best will bubble up. And it's like, okay, but maybe you've given everybody like problems at that point, and everybody is struggling. But anyway, that's another talk. But he left. He was at the height of his career, and he left, and he would just he went off in the Ariège and was in the hills of France, and was just writing voluminously volumes of work, but in a like epistolary style, but it was like letters to no one. And so it's like the mystic side of his life that I am so fascinated by, these people that can just go off. And he still keeps writing because he believes in that idea. And Brian, I'll go first with this one.
Right.
So I think for me, the purpose is like, if I have made new thinking that can last at the intersection of these fields, right? So like I've said, I'm interested in intersecting mathematics with cognitive science, mathematics with continental philosophy, mathematics with, madness, these constructs. And can I make something that lasts at the intersection? It's kind of like quantum computing. I want to make something that doesn't decohere and doesn't fall off into one or the other, but it's these concepts that last in the middle. So I know whenever you bring mathematics into a field, it's going to accelerate it, right? Because we are by definition like concept constructors and concept reworkers, and the only medium is thought. So I don't have an actual apparatus. The medium we have is thought over and over and over again. I'll rethink that, I'll rethink that, I'll rethink that, right? It's not like an actual tangible thing that I need to rework, you know? And so if I can create that, if I can create that new thing for the quantum children, like if I can create that, that, like wherever we are, it's not going to be gotten by the same thinking, right? If it's new thinking that's at the intersections and that is care and like devotional, then that's purpose for me.
New thinking that's filled with care and devotion, to bring that out, to communicate that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think for me, purpose I find in connecting people, connecting, meaning. I find purpose in understanding what someone's trying to say, and then being a vessel for that, right? That's a happy place for me. And then hopefully, always aiming for communicating something that, elevates our world. In any way possible, either how you say it or what you say, or even the choice of projects if you get to choose, right? And then with the same goal to make the world really a kinder, a more compassionate, kind of more emphatic kind of place, and be a platform, create platforms for people who need it.
I love that. Yeah, communication for elevating and a building. I'm right there with you.
Which is kind of building up on where I find purpose, right? When I hear, when I learn from you, and when I hear how you combining, philosophy with mathematics, and how sometimes you feel like you're writing in a dark room, right? I would love to be a voice for that, to bring it out of the dark room and have people sort of like respond or see how those things that you're working on are how people resonate with that.
I love that. Yeah, like making quantum mechanics visual. For me, the intersection of math and design would look like something like the La Sagrada Familia Tesseract. Right? So the Tesseract is like, one of the simplest four-dimensional objects, and it's like a cube within a cube. This thing is by no means simple, though, to actually visualize. And so, like, imagine, a cube within a cube, and I'm connecting the vertices, the inside vertices with the outside ones. And those 8 lines form one direction in the 4th dimension. So you're really expanding minds there. Pushing minds is actually going to think, coming up with new concepts. So, yeah, for me, the intersection of math and design would be once again, supporting math design as one word, little duck rabbits running around all over the place. Right? And then I try to challenge and invite people to see both at the same time. And that would be the quantum thinking, So I think like, can you see the duck rabbit? Like duck rabbit, one word. Like duck rabbit, one word, little duck rabbits running around. And then can you see math design as like one word, And it would be just like,
and that's the same thing, yeah, like finding a shape for those concepts, right? And then what that's so fascinating, and then challenging people's minds about, and then communicating, and then translating that to, like, think about your experience in the world at large, right?
I love it. And then it's like mental workout. It's no different than like, so as a gymnast, it's no different from like gymnastics training into like mental gymnastics, and then you have these like, I'm going to make a duck rabbit today. And I like this notion of illumination, right? So in the spirit of illumination, you're making math design one word.
But the challenge with that I always find is like to bring it out to not just a small group of people who might be interested in it, but really make it accessible, for a really large group of people, because you can so easily kind of just like stay in this little sort of like, bubble where we just kind of talk to ourselves, right? But it's really important to kind of make it accessible to many, many people from many different places.
Oh, I love it. Yeah, then make this thing supernova, and then there's little spots like everywhere.
Yeah.
I agree. I think people are, the quantum has been in the Marvels, like Marvel film, and like it's always kind of there.
Yeah.
And if you actually remember that it is like a superpower, and you can invoke it and you actually use it, and it's going to fight back against these constructs that you are this. Really, I think I'm that.
It feels empowering.
Yeah. And then it'd be like this Noetics Institute, and then like I also see the intersection of math design being like this kind of institute, and then you can have workshops where you're actually, it's very Hogwarts like. It's like flying lessons, but for the mind. It's like, why don't we have these institutions where you can train this accelerated thinking? This is like super accelerated thinking.
Mhm.
You come here, you have people actually all trying to think at the intersections, and then you can go back. So it's like these little workshops, and just like it's like quantum breakfast, but at the institute.
Mhm.
And that's what I think,
Mm.
that's why, this sort of like intersectional dialogue, I think this is the thing that, we need to be having like more of.
Mhm.
And maybe that would be set the stage for this quote. It'd be experimentation, but I think it would make the other kind of learning styles seem very, like you said, solid compared to this one that might be a little more dynamical.
Yep. Yeah. What I love about it, what I do, I kind of like disappearing into it sometimes. Behind my computer, behind this, trying to find a solution where everything clicks, right? Being in that sort of like what you call the dark space, right? That little quiet space. And then I love the collaboration. It's always, when I worked in the editorial world, there was always a photographer, there was a creative director, there was a writer, there was me, there's this collaboration. It's so fun to work with other people who are also creative and who have a vision and who are just passionate about what they do and what we could be doing. Just like how we're talking now. And I think that is like those two things are my favorite. And then if something is out there in the world and you see it in the world and people are appreciating it, and it's taken up space somewhere out there, might it be a logo that I've made or a magazine that was printed or whatever it might be. Like those moments are like, they're hard to describe them, but they feel like you're part of a conversation, or like a small little part. But it's really exciting.
That's beautiful. Yeah, for me, I love exploring and teaching the quantum mechanics to art students. I love it. So, sometimes they think they don't have like sort of the mathematical structure, as opposed to, me teaching quantum mechanics to math students. But they actually do. And it's so fun that, teaching it from this multi-access point, they're able to use their own internal space and wonder and reflection to go explore things they never thought that was even there. So we'll have these assignments like draw a self-portrait in the black hole, like try this, take a dreams event and superpose it with something in your waking state. And they're able to access these memory spaces that weren't really open to them yet. I challenge them like, whoa, okay, imagine like, that you had 8 suns and a dynamical light perspective. How would that feel like to you? Let's put Alice in Wonderland and Quantum Land. Like, draw like the Mad Tea Party in a quantum setting. They love it. Let's explore Dune from the quantums setting. They love it with like Bene Gesserit and all this stuff. And so I absolutely love that, sort of being like this little cosmic messenger, like, hey, this, that I'm actually so grateful to be given the chance that I can show people what I think is beautiful. Like, oh, how do you think about this? And that's the way I kind of show them. It's like me showing a friend, like, hey, did you know that there was a walking stick? Like, it's kind of, it's in that wonder space, like that I can like bring sparkles from the Imaginarium and just try to illuminate, like their day just for a minute. And I just think like what I love about being a mathematician is that I'm able to explore these universal languages and construct like a new map. I'm like, okay, well, that's your globe, but what about this one? And that there's all different possibilities of wonder, that I can actually take the wonder thinking and construct a map of the Imaginarium. And I'm like, oh, for the other like quantum children and stuff like that, for anyone else who identifies as that. And it's sweet because a lot of students in my class will come up like, Fantasia, I never heard of that before. Maybe I'm like that. So I'm very kind of like C.S. Lewis like that. If the tool works, if not, you put it down. And it's just sort of, it's all about exploring who they are.
I love how you like also sharing mathematics in a way that is, so imaginative. We always think it's like, 1 + 1, and it's we all, and everybody has a different relationship with mathematics on their own history, right? But that you're showing it that it is so much more, and then it's really about how you're explaining it. It's about identity, it's about imagination, it's about finding a shape and a language for for a concept, I think it's really fascinating to kind of hear you describe it in that way.
Yeah, because like mathematicos means inclined to learn. It's not about actuaries or taxes or these like horrible things. Like that, it's it's about like lifelong learning. What does it mean to learn, to think, to dream, to imagine? So Hamlet says like, what dreams may come, and I say what mathematics may come. We high five each other or something? No. Thank you.